Welcome to the SoftCo Leaders Series, where we invite experts from industry and sport to provide us with their insights on leading business transformation or leading teams. I'm Susan Spence, co-founder of SoftCo, and today's topic is what's important and critical for AP teams. Accounts payable, or AP, is steeped in manual processes, and AP managers are under pressure today to automate the process, reduce costs, provide compliance, provide controls, and if that wasn't enough, do all of that in this remote environment. I am delighted today to introduce Caroline Adams to you, who has a wealth of experience in financial operations, including AP, AR, and payments. Caroline led the shared services team in Debenhams, including their digital automation. Caroline works as a consultant and is part of the Institute of Financial Operations and Leadership education team. More importantly, Caroline is a top 100 AP influencer. Caroline, thank you for joining us.
Morning, Susan, from sunny Somerset.
Well, Caroline, you're in Taunton, Somerset, the home of Somerset cricket, team of Sir Ian Botham, Sir Viv Richards. Do you follow that fast and furious sport?
Fancy asking me that question. Of course I do. I'm a T20 avid, I should say, T20 member, and follow it whenever work allows, but have been following it since I was a teenager. And during my courting, my husband plays cricket. So I had to learn all about cricket very, very quickly, but I absolutely love it.
Excellent.
Don't ask me the same question about football.
I'm assuming you're a Leeds United fan. That's my team. Well, at least, you know, we only have the offside rule. You have silly mid on in cricket. I don't even know what that is. At least I know what the offside rule is.
Or googlies.
Exactly. Anyway, Caroline, just tell us a little bit about your background. You've done a huge amount, and in particular, when you were leading the teams in the Shared Services Centre of Financial Operations. So you've really been there and done that.
Yeah, I was really lucky to have lots and lots of opportunities in Debenhams, and moved around finance quite a lot, gaining different experiences. So whether it was working in commercial finance, AP, asset management, lots and lots of different roles. But more importantly, I spent a year in IT on a secondment opportunity for the year 2000. So that just shows you part of my age and experience. But it's when the IT industry thought that the world was going to end with the year 2000 and everything was going to crash. But for me, it was an opportunity to learn about project management and stakeholder management. And I brought that experience back with me into finance. But AP has always been my passion. And I absolutely live and breathe AP on a daily basis, even now, since unfortunately the demise of Debenhams. So that's a little bit of my background in Debenhams.
Right.
I should say, I also had the opportunity to work on many, many projects, to lead, to be part of, and that was an exciting time in the industry. For working capital or finance ledgers, just so much, as you say, to look at in AP.
I mean, AP kind of gets a bad rap for being incredibly manual based. Is that just the nature of the function, or is it more that enough organizations haven't automated?
I think it depends on what sector you work in and what the size of your business is. But AP tends to get neglected. And I think people don't understand what the AP function does, and they're very easy to blame when things don't go right. And that's usually if a supplier hasn't been paid. That's when people get excited and jump up and down. But everybody in the business has a part to play in the P2P process. And I don't think people get it. And working for a retailer as well, you have to fight to get funding for automation, because the focus is always on the front end and generating more sales, whatever sector you're in, if you're a retailer. And so AP is looked as a back office function rather than the backbone of the operation. And I think the pandemic has brought a different view of AP, because people, working at home remotely, things had to change, and they had to change very, very quickly. So I don't think it's a lack of appetite by the AP teams, but they're the ones that have to manage the pain points in a manual process on a day-to-day basis.
And we're talking here about what's important for the AP team and what's critical. What are those typical pain points in an AP department?
Yeah, there are many, from receiving paper invoices to, again, best practice having a no PO policy. So receiving invoices with no purchase orders not approved, purchase orders not receipted. I could go on and on and on. But it's usually all about the different steps in the process. And if it's manual, you can guarantee it's going to stop or needs to be restarted. So I know it sounds like I'm rambling, but it is such a big breadth of a topic to talk about. I could go on for hours. It's about the process and where it can stop in the process, really.
And you did say to me that you could talk about numbers, not my favorite topic, but you said to me you could talk about numbers till the cows come home. So I'm going to say, I won't ask you about the cows, but what are the cost areas within AP, and what are the kind of cost savings that you're always looking for?
Yeah. So I think it depends on who you work for and what the strategy is. So it could be that the company you work for, the strategy is to maximize working capital. So that means to make the money in the bank work for you for the biggest impact. And so that might be that you only pay suppliers just on time. So I would be, from a cost perspective, people says it's all about reducing costs. Immediately his thought process is headcount. It's not always about headcount, because hopefully you're going to reinvest that headcount into doing something different. But it is seen as reducing cost in AP. It's not just about AP. Anybody that's involved in the P2P process is part of a cost of processing an invoice. So, the cost reduction in putting automation in, there's a reduction in the raising of POs. There's a reduction in manual receipting of POs, because you can do lots of things. There's obviously a reduced cost in AP, but there should also be a reduced cost in your supplier master file by having clean data, importing, exporting data. So lots and lots of different areas. But I always look at, automation or one of the projects that you're doing as an opportunity to deliver. People talk about value added, but it's about real world. It's about what can I deliver to the business that somebody's going to use and we can make money out of, or you can generate something different, whether that's looking at supplier master file data and looking at spend analysis and talking to procurement about, I've got 20 window cleaners when I should only have 5 or 1. There's lots and lots of different opportunities of looking at the supplier master file. And then there's also looking at your pay methods. AP teams are here to pay suppliers on time, and that's what they want to do. Nobody likes to pay suppliers late, and certainly not small suppliers. So it's an opportunity to look at your pay methods as well, and to see if you can do something different with your pay methods to make it more efficient and to ensure that suppliers get paid on time. Long answer, but I got there in the end.
No, look, that's absolutely brilliant. I mean, a lot of companies talk in terms of, robotic automation, straight through processing, AI, whatever. Where at the end of the day, as you say, it's really about how do I match my purchase order to my invoice? How do I improve relations with my suppliers? How do I pay those small suppliers? How do I get more efficient? So that's, you've touched on a lot of those. The other one I was going to touch on is decision making. There's actually the day-to-day work, which I'd like to ask you about how that changes through automation. And secondly, a little bit about kind of, does it help you make better decisions within the business, and what kind of decisions are those?
Okay, so
Caroline, I've confused you and asked you 2 questions at the same time.
Rewind. So if we talk about decision making, if you've got one version of the truth, which is what your AP department should be, and going through your finance ledgers, whether you've got an integrated systems or not, the data that comes out of AP should be the one version of the truth, and people shouldn't be using different numbers from different places. So if I've got one version of the truth, I've got insight into different data that I can use for different things. And I know I touched on that just now, but what I mean by that is, if I'm looking at my strategic supplier partnerships, am I using just my strategic suppliers, or am I using different suppliers for the same thing that I shouldn't be? So you start talking, you can have visibility of compliance easier. You can use dashboards, you can have insights, and it's all about having the clean data. So doing the project is an ideal opportunity to clean that data up. And it's what am I going to do with it? And if I'm talking to the CFO, which we used to on a daily basis, he would come to AP because he knew that, number one, that we would provide it, number two, it would be accurate, and it depends what he was going to use it for as to what we provided to him. But having one version of the truth is key right the way through the business. And if I'm looking at my accruals, by putting the automation in, I can not have the painful month-end calculation of accruals. I can do that in real time and do it accurately. Well, that's fabulous from a cash flow perspective as well, because from the accruals, I can look at what cash I'm likely to want and when, rather than having when you're calculating it manually, there's always going to be mistakes made, and they could be costing mistakes. So it means I can better manage my cash position as well. So,
and your month-end closing is more accurate. You don't have to go back and restate it. So that's absolutely fantastic. So tell me, the job has to change somewhat for the team when you go from manual to automated. Where then is the focus of the business? Is it on delivering information? How does the job change?
Yeah.
For AP people?
So pre-automation, most of the time is spent trying to find out what is where, because you've got no visibility, no sight. And if you think about, people think that they're helping cash flow management by having invoices in their drawers and not sent to a local. I think everybody's experienced that at some point. Yeah. But by having central invoice receipt, most of the focus was on data processing, exception handling, dealing with, I haven't received your invoice, can you send it again? Then having it about 5 times. So duplicates, trying to prevent duplicate processing as well. But once you've gone through the automation process, the focus changes on, now I've got visibility, I can look at my pinch points and I can go in and drill down into what is causing those pinch points, put my teeth in, and do something about looking at the process. And you will have looked at the process when pre-automation anyway as part of the project, but it's about drilling into the different pinch points and finding out what is happening, why is it happening, what can I do about it, and going from there really. And then it goes into the reporting, insights, dashboards, real-time reporting, can look at what is due and when, can look at my payment practice reporting. Rather than only doing it twice a year, I can look at it monthly and understand why we're paying people late, if you are paying people late, and do something about looking at the process and controls. That's the first time I've mentioned controls in this session, and I'm a very keen controls focused individual as well.
But you're talking about really contributing to the profitability and the efficiency of the business there. I mean, that's where the job changes from the manual aspects and the sort of chasing up invoices. And I have heard that story about invoices being in people's drawers as well. It is a very common one, all right. We actually had a customer once who started the project with an amnesty for people. She left a box outside and said, fill it with the invoices that are in people's drawers around the company. Which kind of brings me on to an organization embarking on a project. Where do they start? What's the most important thing for them to do in the beginning?
Yeah, for me, when I worked at Debenhams, it was about where was the CFO focus? What was the focus? What was the goals of the business, and how did AP fit into that strategy? And that really drove the goal setting. So what was it we were trying to achieve? And for me personally, it was about getting rid of paper. So I know people, they talk about it all the time, but it is about going paperless. And the pandemic, I see that tick the box, because that forced the issue. Well, part cleared it, but not all the way. It was about allowing suppliers to self-serve. Why in this day and age do we want people emailing and well, they don't phone, that good old thing anymore, do they? We spend most of the time on team calls or Zoom calls. But it's about allowing suppliers to self-serve globally. And it's about trading electronically. So different focuses pushed the different projects, and most of when working for a retailer as well, it was always about maximizing supply chain finances, but also about your strategic relationships with your suppliers. So what can I do for suppliers to help them? So we talked about a B2B portal, but it's also about funding. So if you're a supplier, I don't know, in let's say Hong Kong or China, and I'm making retail garments, the part of that process is sourcing and making way in advance of when they're going to get paid. So it was also about looking at funding for suppliers and helping them in payment strategies as well. And I think whatever business you get into, building that supplier relationship and having those strategic suppliers will enable the profitability of the company as well. So again, another long answer, but working back from what are the goals of the business as to what I'm going to deliver from an AP perspective, that shaped the different projects and transformation that we did do. So
excellent. And going to your second favorite topic after numbers, control. Control and compliance. Compliance. Where does that fit into the AP process? Because even today now with remote working, we see it as extremely important, the whole compliance and making sure that we mitigate against fraud in particular in this world.
I'm sure like yourselves, I'm always reading about fraud in the news, and I get really irritated by it, because I don't think whatever the size of the business you work for, I don't think there's an excuse not to have segregation of duties, or perhaps not that strong a term, but from a compliance perspective, you know, the pandemic forced a change in working for all of us, whether you're an employee or a supplier. It's forced a change in all of us. So therefore, you have to look at your controls very, very quickly and look to see what you didn't have visibility of. How do I go about getting visibility, and what do I need to change? And we had to do that very, very quickly. And I saw it as an opportunity because no one had the excuse anymore of not, I can't do that, or just ignoring you, because AP used to spend most of their time chasing people.
Caroline, I can't imagine anybody ignoring you. So
well, they did. And the only reason you're chasing them is because you want them to take an action. So I saw the pandemic as an opportunity to educate people, together with the CFO, and obviously with what Debenhams was going through at the time, so that people understood why you were asking for compliance in the P2P process and what it actually meant. And I think if you talk a different language, if you talk straightforward, down to earth, simple language, people, the light bulb goes off and they go, oh, is that why I'm doing that? Oh, I wonder why we've ever done that. So it forced a change in thinking. And if your suppliers weren't getting paid, then people had to understand quickly why. And working at home, here's my laptop, got mine in front of me here. There is no excuse not to authorize an order or to receipt an order. And there's also no excuse for sending out an email and not a purchase order to place an order. As we all know, an email is a form of contract. And the pandemic, I just found it, rather than from a compliance, strong arming people and strong arming suppliers, I just think by talking to people, they get it. They do get it in the end. And if you work together with them, then they're less likely to ignore you, Susan.
Very good. Caroline, I'd like to just ask you now to give us your top 3 tips to companies embarking on transforming their AP function.
Yeah, I found this really, really simple, because the first thing is to start with understanding what you're trying to achieve, and then work backwards. Obviously, I've just mentioned that, so very apt. And not forgetting to review all the processes as part of that as well. So no project will succeed if you automate what you already have. It's all about looking at your processes. My second point is about breaking the projects into bite-sized chunks and deciding prioritization and milestones. But also, when you've done that first chunk, is to pause, review, and go back and look at, did it achieve what I wanted it to do? Have I got it right? Do I need to tweak it, my Somerset language, tweak it slightly? And then also to learn from it, because it's a continuous improvement cycle. So that's number 2. And thirdly, something that I'm quite good at, communication is key. And I used to be quite sneaky in that I used to identify the negative stakeholders, and then I used to use them as part of the working groups. But more importantly, the first people I used to talk to were the team, because I think you need to allay any fears for them to understand what's happening to their roles and what the outcome is going to be like. So be truthful and remove fears and communicate regularly and as frequently as the project needs. And that's my top 3 tips.
Caroline, that is absolutely fantastic. Thank you very much. I hope the next time we meet, it is at a T20 match. I would love to go to a T20 game, I have to say. It is very exciting. But don't invite me to this 5-day cricket, okay? I'll just fall asleep, okay? The T20, yeah, and as I can see, you've been knocking it out of the park, as they say in cricket terms. But thank you very much for joining us, and that's really some excellent information that I think people will really take on board. So, Caroline Adams, thank you very much for joining our Leaders series. Talk to you again.
Thanks, Susan.